Welcome to episode 38 of Shane Talks 99, August 27th, 1999. This weekend was where lots of crap got dumped at the end of the summer. And this has to be up there with one of the worst weekends in 1999. I know a while back at some point, I think in the beginning of the summer, I did an episode about how it might have been like one of the worst episodes or season or might have been one of the worst weekends of 1999. Well, this one's on par with that. And so this is bad. And I don't really plan on putting a whole lot of effort into this episode. You know what? I'll put as much effort into this episode of the podcast as I think the filmmakers put into making the garbage that came out this week. So hopefully I don't ramble too much because there's really just it's gonna be all negative stuff that I have to say about these three movies. And I'm trying not to focus on negativity in my life. I am trying to be more positive towards things, even crap like what I have to talk about this week. So let's get through this as fast as we can. I'm not gonna dwell on stuff and I'm just gonna breeze through it, and then we'll get ready to get stoned together next weekend, okay? All right. First up, Brendan Fraser's third film of 1999. Um, Brendan Fraser in 1997 played George of the Jungle, and he is back in 1999 as another Jay Ward created character. This time he played Dudley Do-Right in a movie called Dudley Do-Right, also based on an old cartoon. So there was this weird rush in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s about taking like a bunch of old cartoons like that we grew up with as kids and then remaking them as live action movies. Like we had Casper, we had the Flintstones, we had George of the Jungle, we had Scooby-Doo, Rocky and Bullwinkle, like many live action iterations of classic cartoons. The classic cartoons were just okay growing up, but then they were turned into these really bad ad live action movies. And the other bonkers thing about the Dudley Do-Right movie is that a guy named Hugh Wilson wrote and directed this movie, and it's his second movie that he wrote and directed in 1999. The first one, also starring Brendan Fraser, was called A Blast from the Past, or Blast from the Past. Brendan Fraser, Alicia Silverstone, I really, really enjoy that movie. So I think Hugh Wilson knows how to make a good movie. I think Hugh Wilson has talent somewhere, just wasn't put on display in any way with Dudley Do-Right. This film is not well written. It's got gags and attempts at humor, and they just don't land right for me. Brendan Fraser does not get a chance to shine in this movie. His character is pretty unbearable. Rewatching it, I was like, okay, you know what? There's a lot of stuff that I've hated in the past. I've given it a rewatch, and it's okay. And I tried that with this one, and I don't hate the movie. I'm not gonna sit here and say I hate it, but it's also just not good, and it's really not enjoyable. And of the three offerings this week, it's the most watchable and least terrible of them. But I mean, truth be told, if I had a 10-year-old that I could sit down and watch this movie with, I'd be very interested to see how they would react to this movie. Would kids today find this movie funny? Is this one of those movies that is literally specifically written geared towards kids? And maybe in 1999 when I was 19, now when I'm in my 40s, maybe I just don't get this movie. Maybe I'm not supposed to. In the same way that it took me 15 or 20 years to realize that the Phantom Menace was not made for me. Maybe this is another one of those movies where it's just written for an age group that is always younger than I have ever been when it came out. And there is so much wasted talent in this movie. Brendan Fraser, I said, did Blast from the Past, which I really liked. He also did The Mummy this year. This was Rick O'Connell from The Mummy. Oh, Sarah Jessica Parker, Alfred Molina, Eric Idle were all involved in this movie, and all of their talents were squandered on a garbage script. This was obviously just a paycheck for them, and it's enough. I'm going to move on. I've talked enough about Dudley Do-Right. Next up, John McTiernan also directed a second film in 1999. Literally 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the movie The Thomas Crown Affair that he did. How is it possible that within 3 weeks they released two of his movies? Well, that's because the 13th Warrior, previously known as Eaters of the Dead, which I think is a dumb title. It makes me think it's like a zombie movie or something. But like previously, Eaters of the Dead, now retitled The 13th Warrior, sat on shelves for like 2 years. Like it was done for a while and nobody knew what to do with it because it was a garbage movie. The movie is absolute terrible. The movie is absolute crap. And then what happens in 1998? Mask of Zorro comes out. Antonio Banderas skyrockets and how popular he is. And all of a sudden, I don't even know who released this movie, but they went and they pulled it from the vault and they were like, we need to make this movie work so that we can release it. And at that point, they brought in Michael Crichton, who wrote the book. And like, I was super excited about that. Like, this was a Michael, like Jurassic Park, Sphere, Congo. Like, I was super into Michael Crichton. Granted, I never read Eaters of the Dead because it was, that book came out in the 70s. I was kind of more into kind of his later sci-fi work that he did and whatnot. But like when I was in high school, I read Beowulf. That was more than enough for me. I don't care about Vikings, never have. There's like I know a lot of people that are big into Vikings and care about Viking culture and all that kind of stuff. Not my jam, not something I care about. So like combining those two things didn't excite me. But what excited me was Michael Crichton was involved. So I was obviously excited to go see the movie. And in 1999, I didn't know all this drama that was going on with it. I was getting a movie that they were marketing as a Michael Crichton movie and like based on his book, directing, like all of this kind of stuff. Because, well, I don't even know if it's a shared directing credit or not. I don't know if maybe Michael Crichton was like uncredited as doing the directing on it, but I know when they went to do reshoots to try to revamp the movie to re-release it after Antonio Banderas got super popular. I just like it. No matter what, like I couldn't. I just found nothing to enjoy in this movie, and like I recently like less than a month ago. I don't remember exactly what weekend it was, but I was at Joe's Grill in Fishers, and I was sitting on the back patio with a group of friends, and a mutual friend of ours, somebody that I know, he's also a big movie buff. He tried to convince me that The 13th Warrior is a good movie, and I argued with him. I denied it with him. And I knew that coming up I was going to do this episode. So when the rewatch was getting ready to happen, I was like, okay, maybe this guy's right. Maybe I'm going to enjoy this movie more. As we just said, I didn't hate Dudley Do Right on my rewatch this week. Granted, I also didn't like it, but I didn't hate it. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not going to hate the 13th Warrior. No, I hated the 13th Warrior. I absolutely hated every minute that I sat through that movie again this year. It's still garbage. It's not good in any way. Very poorly written. The characters are terrible. The character development in the movie is terrible. I literally don't care about any of I'm given no backstory to make me want to care about any of them. I'm so uninterested in anything that happens in this movie. The exposition is terrible. The dialogue is almost unbearable. Like it's cringe-worthy dialogue. Like the stuff you have to sit through listening to people talk about. Like there's nothing redeeming in this movie. And the music in this movie is just out of nowhere and does not fit. Like what I'm watching and what I'm hearing just don't mesh together. And like so when McTiernan left to go do the Thomas Crown Affair, and then the studio finally decided they're going to bring it back, and they want Crichton to finish it. Crichton fired the guy who wrote all the original music for it and brought in Jerry Goldsmith. And you would think like it's Jerry Goldsmith. He's written some really great scores in Hollywood. He literally was doing this as a favor to Michael Crichton. He literally was doing this for a paycheck because there is no like the music is not good and doesn't feel like it goes with the movie. So like I might ever consider watching this again if I could really listen to Graham Revell's original score for this movie. Because Graham Revell does music that I like. He does music for really good movies. The Crow, From Dusk Till Dawn, The Craft, The Saint, The Negotiator. And a couple years later, he would end up doing the music for a movie called Titan AE. Like, this dude does good music, and he has a variety of music that he writes, and like it's stuff that fits different genres. And I feel like he probably wrote a far better score than we ended up getting from Jerry Goldsmith for this movie. Like, I should probably go online and see if there's somewhere the Graham Revell score is available because I would actually listen to it because to see if it's better than what we got. Like, if you were to make the 13th Warrior today and like what's going on in the movie, like where it takes place and stuff like that, it would be a no-brain decision to get Ludwig Göransson to do the music for this movie. Like when you think about the stuff that he's done with like The Mandalorian and with some of the other stuff he's done, like his vibe fits what the 13th Warrior's music should be. And I feel like Graham Revel would have done a far, far better job of putting out something like that. So like as far as the cast goes in this movie, I've already talked about Antonio Banderas. The only other names that matter in this movie that I even give a crap about, Omar Sharif. And this film is a huge step down from things like Dr. Zhivago and Lawrence of Arabia. Like how they got such a talented actor to do such a garbage role. I don't know. I don't understand it. The only other person in this movie that I even care about is an actor named Tony Karan. And the only reason I care about Tony Karan is because he played Vincent Van Gogh in one of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who that there ever was. So, for like, yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm done rambling. I didn't want to make this episode long at all. I'm moving on to the third film now. Let's talk about Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp had the second movie that came out in 1999. This is literally just where everything was dumped. There was multiple movies from actors in 1999. Johnny Depp, we've talked about long, long ago. I'm pretty sure it was a January release. We talked about a movie called The Ninth Gate. Really terrible, really garbage movie. We have a second terrible garbage movie from Johnny Depp this year called The Astronaut's Wife. And it's him starring alongside Charlize Theron. Later this year, we're going to talk about Charlize Theron's second film of 1999, which is Cider House Rules. Really good movie. Looking forward to talking about that later this year. But until then, this unforgettable, non-suspenseful sci-fi garbage offering of an astronaut who goes out to outer space and comes back and is replaced by an alien. Oh, oops. So as you should know, these movies are 25 years old, so sometimes that spoil the endings to some of them. Johnny Depp's character at the end is revealed to be an alien. So we'll get to that in a minute. I'll talk a little bit about that. So like before that's revealed, they try to play up this big paranoia like thing. Um, it's a lot of why is he acting different? Why is he different from the character he was at the beginning to what he becomes when he comes back from the incident that happens in outer space? Like when he comes back, like, even before he goes, like he's not even that different because there's a sexual scene in the opening of the movie, and then there's a lot of attempts at sexual stuff after he comes back, is because his alien character is trying to impregnate Charlize Theron. So, lots of attempts at like I think it's an R-rated movie, but it's a lot of like PG-13 sexual stuff. Like they don't give us a lot of like overt sexual stuff, but it's like they have sex in a public area in the middle of this banquet thing where they go around the corner and like it's this weird shot of like them starting to fuck up against the wall that then like rotates and then turns into their bedroom, and it's dumb. It's not good. It's not enjoyable. It's not a very good attempt to sexualize scenes in a movie. Some of my happiest moments in this movie involve two side characters, Nick Cassavetes and Clea Duvall. They both have supporting roles in this movie. And then at the very end of the movie, for about 20 seconds, we get to see Cole and Dylan Sprouse, the kids from Big Daddy. They make a super quick appearance as the twin alien babies that have grown up, obviously, a couple of years later during the epilogue of the movie. So, like, those are really the only big things that I cared about in this entire movie. Like, and here's okay, so like here's one of my biggest issues with how terrible this movie is. Like, you have a sci-fi movie that they literally gave no budget to. Like, no budget went to make anything science fiction in this. Like, you've got two astronauts who go up into outer space. And like going to outer space is this huge plot point in this movie, and like something happens when they're up there in space, but we don't even get to see like any minute bit of it at all. Like we see not a single frame in the entire movie from outer space. I mean, I'd say like I think like the opening scene is like a wide shot of Earth or something like that. Like it's terrible. During the space shuttle launch, when they're getting ready to go to outer space, like we see Charlize Theron put her hand on a window, and then we hear like Mission Control doing their countdown and stuff like that. And like, I don't think she would hear that at her house, so I don't think that's supposed to be like she's listening to Mission Control and touching the window. Like, I think we as the audience are just seeing these two things at the same time, and like, not once did they think that like we should budget to give them anything to be shot in outer space? Like, let's grab some stock footage of some space stuff and then let's shoot some green screen stuff with them to make it look like Johnny Depp and Nick Cassavetes are in outer space. Like, nothing, not one single frame of these two astronauts up in outer space. Like you couldn't even give me stock footage of the space shuttle launch taking off. Like I couldn't even get that in this movie. Like where did this $75 million budget go? Like obviously it went to I don't know Johnny Depp's paycheck maybe or maybe like what did it really cost $75 million to do the one scene of CGI that they did in the finale like the climax of this movie and it's still bad CGI like there's stuff from it's nothing compared to Jurassic Park CGI it's nothing compared to the Abyss is CGI from 1989. Like 10 years later, they literally look like they went backwards in their CGI for this movie. So like again, spoiling the ending, like because the ending is the only thing in this entire movie, despite how terrible the CGI is, that kind of works and is worth talking about. Because like it's revealed that Johnny Depp's character is this alien. This alien during the incident in space took over his body. And so like Charlize Theron like assumes this. She creates this really elaborate plan because apparently aliens can't survive if they're electrocuted. So cool. She figures out this way to flood their apartment. He comes in, he starts to, get, physical with her, and she figures out a way to electrocute the alien. Cool. She has a plan. She gets her feet off the floor. She's on a chair. There's no electricity on her. She electrocutes the alien, not taking into concept of the alien is then revealed to be able to jump bodies from Johnny Depp's dying character, the alien jumps into Charlize Theron. So that's honestly not the worst twist ending I've ever seen in Hollywood. Like, it's okay. Like, it's just really poorly executed everything up until that moment. And then, like I said, the CGI in this scene is absolutely terrible. But it's like the villain wins, the alien wins. Like, it takes over Charlize Theron's body. She still has the baby, the twins that she's pregnant with. Aliens are on Earth now. Like, okay. I don't hate the ending of this movie, but it's 98% crap and 2%, okay, that's not crap. But like it it it's okay for how bad this movie is. So like this was a really, really bad weekend in 1999. It's not a surprise that The Sixth Sense, which came out 3 weeks ago, was still number one at the box office this weekend because it just had nothing to compete with it. So I tried to make this episode as fast as possible. I'm sorry you had to suffer through all that crap with me, but like, let's just look at it this way. Next week, we get back together and we're going to get high while we talk about the Fairley Brothers' next movie that they gave us in 1999. And then we'll also talk about Skeet and Cuba doing some chillingly dumb stuff. Okay? I'll talk to you next week.